Humans are storytellers. It's how we connect. We're social animals. We all tell stories, and we all like hearing stories. From the time our parents put us to bed with tales about eggs tumbling off walls, we've been hearing stories. And from the time we could talk, we've been telling them. Storytelling isn't just a social skill, it's also a business skill. Some business stories are meant to be informative, like progress reports, and some are meant to be persuasive, like sales pitches. We all know a good storyteller, a good communicator, someone who can convince us to try a new restaurant or make us feel like we were actually there at their kid's birthday party. Musicians are storytellers. So are bakers and accountants. Some people tell stories with words, and some with cupcakes or balance sheets. We all have a story to tell. Some people are better at it than others, but just like anything else, we can practice storytelling and get better. Teachers are some of the best storytellers. I'm talking today with a professional storyteller, but perhaps more importantly, a professional story hearer. David Norris is a reporter with television station KABB, and he's going to tell us a story about stories. Welcome to Bearcast. I'm Randy Langford, and this is Bearcast, a weekly interview with business, political, educational, and nonprofit leaders. We're examining the relationships between all four and how each one benefits from the success of the other three. David Norris has been a professional storyteller for years. David is the feature reporter at San Antonio's KABB, where he's always on the lookout for interesting stories, usually about the unsung heroes who make our city unique. David earned his journalism degree from the University of Houston and started his career as an editor and news writer at station KPRC. He earned 2 Texas AP Awards at KBTX in Bryan College Station and was nominated for a Texas Emmy for a story about robotics helping homebound students attend school. After a 4-year stint at KTUL in Tulsa, he came back home to Texas. David, welcome.
Hey, thank you.
You knew early on you were going to be a reporter. How did that come to be? How did you decide to be a journalist?
I knew early on that I loved writing. Ever since I was a little kid, I loved writing. I couldn't stop doing it. I always wrote poems, I always wrote something, but I never thought I could make a living out of it until actually when I got married and I was already in journalism school. My wife kind of encouraged me. She said, "You should just do this thing. You really love writing. You really love journalism. Let's do it." So that's when I decided to go all out.
I've heard that's a bug that never goes away. Once you're bitten, you're bitten.
You are bitten.
It's like malaria. It's always there.
Yeah, exactly.
When you were a kid, did you have any reporter heroes? Anybody you looked up to? Anybody that inspired you? I want to do that?
Yeah, no, not as a kid, because I was never into news per se. I was more into storytelling and writing. And to this day, I don't get too much into news. I like the news business. I love it. This is what I've been doing for the past 8 years now. But for me, it's always the writing, always the going out in the field, the meeting new people every day and telling their stories. That's the part I love.
Yeah, and that's kind of the beat you have at KABB. I notice you're more of the features reporter than the hard news. What is it about storytelling that's so engaged you, so engrossed you, even as a child?
Yeah, well, here at KABB, I'm fortunate because I have this role as San Antonio Proud. That's our segment that we do, where I tell stories of people doing interesting things in the community, like Bearfest, like you, Randy Langford. We did a story on you. But ever since I was a kid, I don't know what it is. You know, sometimes you just have this thing in you that you can never get rid of. For me, it was writing. I've always loved to write and tell stories. I'm a better writer than I am a talker, you know, and I'm kind of an introvert too. So writing has always been my thing to go to. And it's just, now I'm actually making a living at it.
Nice.
And I'm very blessed.
Nice. That's a home run right there.
Yeah.
Was there a teacher, when you were in school and you had this writing passion, this desire to become a writer, you had to learn, you had to be trained. Was there a teacher when you were in school that really put it into you that you can do this, go forth and be successful?
Yeah, it's a funny thing about teachers. You know, the bad ones you don't really remember because they all kind of, you know, come together as one, but you remember the good ones. You remember their names. Miss Gregory, 2nd grade. I'll never forget her. She was the first teacher who stopped talking at me and started talking to me, treating me like as a person, and she seemed like she had this respect for me.
That's pretty remarkable for a 7-year-old.
Exactly. It's like, and you know, kids are smart. They're super smart, and they know when you're talking at them and
right.
or to them. And she treated me like a person, and she encouraged me to write, and she encouraged me to do the things that I liked, and I'll just never forget that.
What attracted you to television? Was that just where you happened to land? I know when I was a journalism major in school, same thing, and my intention when I was in school was to go into television news. I ended up in print instead. And loved it, had a good career, had a great time. But was there something, were you always aiming at TV?
I like TV because I like I said, writing, but I also kind of like performing, which is interesting. And I'm an introvert too, right? So you think, but I do, because I did community theater for a little bit, just acting, doing things, and I loved it. I loved being on stage and performing a part. And I even loved when people clapped, So this is, to me, the best of both worlds, where I can write and I could get to know people and tell their stories, but I could also do a little bit of performing too, a little bit of on-camera stuff, and then my voice when I'm doing the stories and all that, I could work on that, and so it's kind of best of both things. I like that.
We're living in what is commonly referred to as the information age, and you're an information purveyor. Sometimes it feels like more like the information overload age. How do we sort it out? Do you have a professional's perspective on how do we become better listeners?
Oh, that's a good question. Better listeners. I think that goes back to storytelling in a way, because what is it about storytelling that makes you a better listener? Okay, so you go and you do a story on something, and there's all this information of this subject that you're covering. They do this, but they also do this, and they also do this over here, which is kind of cool, and that could be a whole other story, but you got to keep your focus. So go in with a focus, know what you're looking for, find that little thing, and just stay focused, and that's what storytelling is all about. It's like helping you to find your focus and sticking with it. And all the clutter, all the other stuff becomes that, and you can kind of tune that out, you determine what that is, I think. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay. Well, the people that listen to this 15-minute podcast are not going to know about the 45 minutes we talked.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you have to narrow it down, focus.
Right. You've been in the profession for a while, and you've been listening for a while. How has communications changed?
Well, I could tell you how communications have changed in the news industry.
Let's start there.
Yeah, in TV news, traditionally, it was reporter, photographer. Two people go out, cover a story, come back. Reporter asks the questions, photographer shoots the video, reporter writes the script, photographer edits the script into video. Now it's more focused on one person, like me, for instance. I do everything. I shoot, I ask the questions, I write the script, I edit the video. It's a lot more time intensive. So it's changed in that way. They put a lot more pressure on you. Then you have social media. We have to update our social medias like once or twice a day. It was never like that. And the thing is, the industry has not changed because they still depend on you to do those things that once just a reporter would do. Like say, generate new stories every day and do a lot of things that a reporter did every day because he had more time to do it. But now it's more, so you really, and it goes back to finding your focus again. If you can't find your focus in this business, you're going to get, you're going to get run over because they put a lot more weight on you. And they still have reporter photographers, but they do like one-man bands. That's what I am. And they call them MMJs, multimedia journalists. Right. So, but they like those guys too. So if you can do that, they like it, but you'll be doing a lot more work.
Yeah. Is that good or bad?
For me, it's good. A lot of people don't like it. A lot of people get into business and they want to be a reporter, a traditional reporter, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But me, I like shooting and editing and telling stories visually and telling stories with audio. Like somebody puts their hand on a table, they snap their fingers, whatever they do. I want to use that in my video and make sort of a soundtrack. I love doing that personally. I went to school for that too, journalism school and video school. At first I was like, I just want to be a reporter. But then I started realizing that, this is pretty cool. And you can do so many things when it's you. When you're with a photographer, all that goes to him or her. It's like you don't get to do that stuff.
That's kind of the filter.
Yeah, and you lose some creative control. So I personally like it. I personally love telling stories with words and telling stories with video pictures and with sound. I like it, all that stuff.
Clearly, you're good at it.
Thank you.
We talked a little bit about how important it is to be a good listener as a reporter. How important is it, and this is from a non-professional perspective, just the everyday person, how important is it to be able to communicate? Just in general, just every day as you go through the world. You got to be able to make yourself understood, and you've got to understand the information coming at you. How important is that?
To communicate.
Yeah.
Well, you have to communicate to get by, right?
And how important is doing it effectively? Because I mentioned the information overload age.
Yeah.
There's so much information coming at you, coming at all of us, coming at kids.
Yeah.
How do you become a separate channel? How do you make yourself a separate channel? Then there's all this white noise going on over here, but here's what's worth listening to.
Yeah.
How do you do that?
You have to be, I guess, and the only thing I can think of when you say that is me doing my job, because that's usually, okay, there's two Davids, right? There's a David at work, which is this extroverted, hey guys, let's do this. We're going to do a story. Sure. Tell me your name. What do you do? Well, that's interesting. What about this? And there's me at home. Let's watch some Netflix. Let's sit on the couch. Let's get another beer, Yeah. That's me at home. I'm totally introverted, staying home with my wife, playing with my girls, doing stuff like that. But when I'm at work, then the communications switch comes on. And for me at work, it's helping to, I guess not wrangle, but kind of guide the person you're interviewing to the vision that you have, the focus that you have, because like I said, a lot of times they want to say lots of other things, and you have to help them stay focused too. So you have to know what you're doing going in. You have to be able to communicate to that person without seeming rude. Interrupt them sometimes, because there's some people who just love to talk, So you have to be able to politely interrupt them. But, in this job, if you can't communicate to people, you're going to get run over and you're not going to make it very far. It's so key.
Right. Most communications now is digital. I mean, 99% of what we consume now is digital. The human conversation is kind of antiquated.
Yeah.
How can we help kids? How can students, and this is directly pointed towards kids in school right now, how can students become better storytellers or better communicators?
That's a good question. How can they become better storytellers, better communicators?
Make themselves more hearable.
I think you have to work with kids. I think you have to work on building their skills, their storytelling skills. A lot of kids will tell you, I can't write, I don't want to write, but it's still, they have to tell a story in some way or another, whether it's saying, they want to do this or they want to work on a certain math problem. I think it's important to teach kids how to talk their way through problems, or how to describe feelings, or how to do all these kind of things, and all of that is storytelling.
Right. And some people tell stories with spreadsheets, and some people tell stories
like you
with
said. Yeah,
cupcakes.
Exactly. Everything is a story. Everything is story. Spreadsheets, cupcakes,
and every kid has a passion somewhere, something that's going to be important to that student, and it is of tremendous value to be able to express that in multiple ways. There's telling your story, but then there's going to come a time when you have a job interview, and you're going to want to be able to express your passion. Not necessarily, here's my resume, read it, pretty cut and dry, pretty straightforward, but how does that encapsulate, here's what I'm passionate about, here's what I want to do. That's up to the speaker, to the person telling their story, to tell it effectively.
Exactly. And a lot of times I find that when you go to interview people, and this may be true when you're being interviewed, think about this, because a lot of times when I'm interviewing people, they'll tell me the stuff that they think I want to hear. They're like, oh, this. And then all of a sudden it will come out, that one thing that you latch onto that becomes your focus. You're like, oh, I didn't know that. For instance, I did a story in Garcia Art Glass the other day. I don't know if you've heard of that place.
Sure.
Okay. They do some amazing work over there. And I'm talking to Jeannie Garcia, who's the owner, and she's telling me the stuff that I want to hear, we've been doing this for a while, since 1998, all of our pieces are one-of-a-kind originals, and all of them tell stories, too. Even her glass tells stories, because she does a lot of hours of research on each piece before she creates it, on the person who wants it, on all this stuff. It's so interesting.
Well done.
Yeah. But still, and that's interesting, too, but it's sounding more like kind of a commercial at this point, and I don't like commercials.
Right.
But then she says one thing, and she just happens to let it slip out. I said, have you always loved art? She goes, no, I never took an art class in my life. I was in pre-med. I'm like, that's so cool. That's interesting. Right. That's it right there, my hook, So a woman who fell in love with art never intended to be an artist. Now she is. One day she just realized, I love coloring. I love design. So why not go to art school? So she did.
Right.
And look what happened.
Yeah. Funny.
That's amazing.
Funny how you're gonna find it. It'll find you.
Exactly.
It's more often your passion finds you than you find it.
Exactly. So to answer that original question, if to talking to people, remember it's what makes you, or what made you, that's important to hear, not just what you think they want to hear.
Right.
All those little things like that.
Yeah, authenticity is overused. That's people throw that word around a lot, but just be you.
Yeah, and then the things you think people don't find important are the most important thing, and you don't realize it until you voice it.
Well, David, thank you. I appreciate you speaking with us.
Thank you so much. This has been fun. Thank you, Randy.